Welcome to another episode of I Speak African. I'm your host, Yanu. Today's topic, I want to discuss Africans who immigrate to the U.S. Now, I've noticed for a while that mostly when Africans migrate to the U.S., they often display a lot of anti-Black sentiment towards Black Americans and also American Caribbeans. We have many times we have Africans who think they're better though, and because of that, they won't mingle with Black Americans or Caribbeans until they find it beneficial too. And then they'll be like, "Oh, we're all African, we're all Black," and it's very unfortunate because all of the civil rights leaders who fought for civil rights in America and were able to get it passed were Black American and American Caribbeans. Uh, so there was this one story I saw online about this Caribbean girl. I don't know what her nationality was or what island she was from, but she was saying how she doesn't want Black Americans to participate in Carnival. It's cultural appropriation, and I'm thinking to myself, that's the first I've heard of that because I went to school with a lot of Caribbeans and they want Black people, Black Americans, and Africans to come to Carnival. So that was very very strange to hear that. I also grew up around a lot of Jamaicans, Guyanese, Trinis, and Bajans, and never heard that before. So that's new to me. But on another note, I want to discuss specifically how Africans who come to America, they migrate to America or immigrate to America, how they don't do any research. They don't tell anybody that they're coming, and because of that, they end up living in very weird states. Like you'll have Nigerians and Kenyans and Ugandans, Ghanaians, and I meet a lot of Africans, and I'll be like, "Where do you live?" Or I'll meet somebody, and I'm like, "Yo, where are you from?" And they'll be like, "I'm from Nebraska. I'm from Missouri. I'm from Alabama, Kansas." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Why'd you move there?" And they're like, "Oh, that's just where I came." And it's like, yeah, you should have done your research before because those are some of the poorest states in America. You don't want to live there. Now, for those who are listening, let me tell you the states that you want to move to. Number one, the DMV. That stands for the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, not all of Maryland, but in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia being Fairfax and Arlington. Maryland being a few counties, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Charles County, and Howard County. Don't move to somewhere crazy like, I don't know, wherever Ellicott City is. Don't move there, or don't move to any of these other like really weird places in Maryland. But yeah, and then if you don't want to move to the DMV, I would say Atlanta, Georgia. There's a big African population there. I would also say Houston, Texas, if you're a Nigerian and you want to be around other Nigerians. Or there are also a lot of Nigerians in the DMV too, and also Atlanta. So if you want to be around Nigerians, there's also now Seattle's pretty crazy. The only people I would recommend Seattle for is Habesha people, so Ethiopians, Eritreans, and then also Somalians and Gambians, because there's a huge population of those four African people that live in Seattle. But Seattle's full of crackheads and drugs and just crazy stuff. So I would not recommend Seattle, but to each their own. Now, another fact that Africans need to be aware of is that Oyibo people, Ozungu people, they all see us as Black people. It don't matter what tribe you are. It don't matter, what language you speak. They all see we're just one Black. We're just one big Black people. It don't matter if your name is Babatunde, Chinadu, Nana, Kwabena, Hillary. That's for y'all, Kenya. And speaking of Hillary, I don't know why y'all name y'all sons Hillary. It's a girl's name. Like, I've met so many Kenyans who are called Hillary. Stop naming your children Hillary. It's funny. It's weird. And then also, for y'all South Africa, Duduzan. But like I said, don't, you know, when you come here to America, take that chip off your shoulder. You're not super special because you come from Africa. And a lot of Africans will be like, well, I wasn't enslaved. Yeah, you were. Colonization was a form of slavery. It just wasn't called slavery. And if you don't believe that, if you have any Congolese friends, ask how the Congolese were treated under the rule of King Leopold II. He imposed a rubber quota that Congolese had to get, and if you do not make that rubber quota, you got your hand cut off. So if if you want to call that not slavery, and you want to call it something else, you want to call it colonization, I don't know, but to me that sounds like slavery. So when I hear a lot of Africans saying, "Oh, I wasn't enslaved, I was just colonized," that's nothing to brag about. Like, you were also enslaved too. It's like, look at the history of other African nations. Look at what happened in Rwanda. Look at what happened in Nigeria. Like, just look at other African countries. That was, sure, it wasn't as bad as the transatlantic slave trade or slavery that happened in America, but it was slavery, diet slavery or light slavery, but it was still slavery. Yeah, so Africans, need to change their mentality when they come to America. Also, beware of the American federal minimum wage. A lot of Africans don't know about that. Now, the American federal minimum wage is $7.25. You can't get nothing with $7.25. If I go to McDonald's, I go to Wendy's right now, I think, okay, I can get a biggie box or a biggie bag at Wendy's. And then at McDonald's, you can't even get a full combo. You can maybe get I think a Big Mac or a quarter pounder with cheese. I don't think you can get a double quarter pounder with cheese for $7.25. So that's the federal minimum wage, meaning that the United States government cannot pay you less than $7.25. But also, the reason why I brought up the states earlier about which states to move into, many states in America, there are 3 states in America that pay the highest minimum wage. That is California, Washington State, and New York, in the state of New York. Now, within California, I forgot what city it is. Within Washington State, it's Seattle. In New York, I don't know what city in New York pays, but one city in New York pays a very high minimum wage. I feel like, and I think each of those minimum wages are like $20 or something around $19. So if you're going to come to America, don't come to one of these states that I named earlier that I said were weird, because they still pay the minimum wage of $7.25, which you can't live on, and you might end up being on welfare or some kind of government assistance, which you don't want to do. And then, as I said earlier, how there's a lot of anti-black sentiment, amongst, geared towards Black Americans and Caribbeans. There's a story that, a video I saw online about a week ago, no, a few days ago, about a week ago, of a nurse practitioner by the name of Adama Diallo. And she lives in Ohio. And maybe you guys have seen this, but I don't know what precipitated the altercation, or what was the catalyst of the altercation, but she's being recorded calling a Black American man the N-word with the hard R, and then a slave, and telling him to get a real job. And I'm looking at this, and like I said, I'm not surprised because I've seen it all. But I'm thinking, if it wasn't for this Black man and Black Americans, you wouldn't be able to practice medicine in America. Like I said, she's a nurse practitioner. I saw on her website that it says MD. She's not an MD. She's a nurse practitioner. Also, she is not Somalian. She is not Ethiopian. She's not Eritrean. So let me disclose that right now, because a lot of people are saying, I've seen online people are saying like, oh, those Ethiopians, those Eritreans, those Somalians. No, she is not East African. She is West African. Most likely she's from Guinea, because in Guinea, that name Diallo is very, very common. Or she could be from, I wouldn't say maybe Gambia, but I think Gambians are called Jallo, which is a variation of Diallo. Or she could be from maybe Senegal or Ivory Coast, but most likely she's probably from Guinea. And she goes on this rant telling this black man he's a slave, he's all this stuff. And then she, like, because of the backlash, I think she ends up, she makes her license inactive. I don't know how, I voluntarily, I guess in the medical field, you can voluntarily make your license inactive. But I personally believe that she should not practice medicine at all, because you have to look at this. If she's calling a black man a slave, and she's saying, you're a slave, you're the N-word, and you need to go get a real job, she's not just saying you. She's thinking about all black Americans like that. And as a as a clinician, even though I don't think all clinicians have the Hippocratic Oath, but all clinicians have to follow the same oath of do no harm. And if you are looking down on a group of patients, that means you're doing harm, because you're not giving them the type of care that they deserve. You're not giving them the best care that they deserve, because you're looking at their race. So I believe that she should not practice medicine anymore. She shouldn't. I think her license should be stripped, because, like, think about this. How stupid can you be? You're jeopardizing. In the video, there's a little girl, a little black girl. So I'm assuming that little black girl is her daughter. So you're jeopardizing not only your life, your daughter's life, and whatever children you have. And if she's married, and that means you're also jeopardizing your husband's well-being as well, because nurse practitioners make good money. So that's a good source of income that's no longer flowing into your house, because you decided that you were going to, dehumanize this black man because of something that you could easily be like, okay, just leave my place of business. But no, you felt the need to say this, and that's just crazy, because many times when Africans come here, it's the Wazungus, the Igbos, treating us like we're nothing, and it's sad, it's unfortunate. It's, like I said, there's always so much Afrophobia, anti-blackness that just goes around, and a lot of times Africans are the biggest perpetrators of anti-blackness, which is crazy because we're all black. And speaking of something crazy, so how there are a lot of illegal immigrants trying to come over to America, well, illegal Hispanics that are trying to come over to America and have their day in court because of they're asylum seekers, and that's according to, I think it's the Geneva Convention, or yeah, I think it is. If somebody wants to correct me, you can correct me, but I know that, or I think it's just American law. I know that if you are seeking asylum, you are due a day in court. But the crazy thing about this is that if you guys aren't aware of what's happening in Haiti right now, listen to my second video about what's happening in Haiti. So the American government decides that the Haitians who are seeking asylum, we're going to process them at Guantanamo Bay. That's what the Biden administration proposed. So that means they were thinking about it, which is crazy. That's where the perpetrators of 9/11 are imprisoned. Guantanamo Bay. So you're saying that these Haitians who are trying to flee their country for greener pastures are the same as terrorists, and you're going to put them in Guantanamo Bay. How are you going to put pregnant women and children and even in men in Guantanamo Bay, process them? That's crazy, And as I said, we as Black people, we need to really start fighting each other, because there are a whole bunch of people who are we're doing their jobs for them. There was this guy. He's a chiropractor out of Houston, Texas, named Kareem Isa, and he had a patient, and he decided to call that or a former patient. He decided to call that patient the N word and a slave. And then when he was being interviewed, he was like, "No, I never said that. Nothing about color." And then eventually he confessed and was like, "Yeah, I did say those things, but it wasn't because he was Black." I'm thinking, okay, then what's the reason why you called him a slave in the N word? If it's not like, what's the correlation? What's the connection? You don't just call somebody a derogatory term that's used for their people or their race for no reason. Um, and there's a whole bunch of idiots out there who will do other people's work for them with just for a paycheck or some likes or whatever. Case in point, retired football player Emmanuel Acho, who is Igbo. He I don't know if you guys saw. He said some very disparaging things about the Chicago basketball player, Chicago Sky basketball player, Angel Reese, and he made her cry, and it was crazy. He also said he also went on, because he's a sports reporter or sports commentator, and he also said some very ignorant things about how he's better than Black Americans, because as a Nigerian, he does not suffer the same trauma as Black Americans. He didn't go through slavery. He didn't go through Jim Crow. And I'm thinking, yeah, I didn't go through slavery. I didn't go through Jim Crow, but my ancestors did. So trauma is passed down. And, the reason why he could say such rubbish is because the average American doesn't know the history of Nigeria, doesn't know the history of the Nigerian Civil War and the Biafra Civil War. And it's like, if you know the history, you would know that there's a lot of trauma in the Igbo community that they're still dealing with to this day. And that's why part of their trauma is why many Igbos only marry Igbos, because they don't trust other Nigerians, you know? And, I remember when I saw that video I posted, and I was like, yeah, Emmanuel Acho was saying, he's just saying rubbish, because he knows that your average American doesn't know the history of Nigeria. Because after the Biafra War ended, each Igbo family was given like 50 naira and a bag of rice, and that was it. And they were like, "Go on your way. We don't care what's happened to you. Just go on your way." Like, imagine 50 naira and a bag of rice. While they had, before the Biafra War, they had homes and businesses and all this stuff. And then after the war, the Nigerian government's like, "Yeah, that's all we're giving you. We don't care. If you have a relative in another part of Nigeria, go to them, but you're not getting anything." And you know, it's like I always say, African Americans built this country. Like, we literally built this country. Like, it was built by our ancestors, and we still don't reap the benefits of this country. So when I see and I hear Africans from the continent come over here and think they're better, I'm thinking, slow down, because you guys need to respect the people who built this country, who made this country, what it is to this day, and why you're able to go to, medical school, law school, whatever, and be successful. So, it's something that many people need to think about, and the same respect you show others who aren't Black American, show to Black Americans, show to Caribbeans, show to each other, But that concludes today's episode. Please like and subscribe to my channel so that I can continue giving you guys more content. Thank you, and stay blessed.